Welcome everybody to Tools for Humanity. These are live stream conversations featuring different wellness experts. And it's really just an opportunity for some of these experts to share a little wisdom with us, to guide us through a little practice, and just to kind of bring people together because this is a time of isolation and staying at home, and this is one of the ways that we're able to connect right now. And I think it's really important as we move through this to kind of join together, especially with other like-minded people, and kind of raise the vibe a little bit and uplift each other, inspire each other, and also get an idea of what's working for different people to navigate this time. So that's a little bit of a background on Tools for Humanity. If you have not watched one of the conversations yet, I believe we've done 4. I've done 4 so far. So you can view those on my YouTube channel, which is Amy Patee, just search it, or Instagram. Also, most of them are on Instagram. So go back and check some of those out because it's been a variety of speakers with lots of different, coming from different backgrounds and just offering just a wealth of wisdom for these times. So check those out for sure. And I'll just repeat because a few new people may have come on, but you are muted automatically, so you don't have to worry about muting yourselves if you don't want to. And your video is not showing, so I can only see Julie and myself. You guys, unfortunately, it's just a little too much going on. But so we can't communicate with you verbally, but you can use the Q&A chat box, and feel free to use that just to comment, to share ideas that come to you throughout the conversation, and to ask questions, because like I said, Julie's going to answer all of our questions tonight. So
everyone.
You have till about midnight, right, Julie?
Right, we've got time.
But there will be time for some Q&A, and we'll do that throughout the broadcast. So if you do have questions, utilize that little Q&A chat. So, and thank you for being here. And if I don't know you personally, my name is Amy Patee, and I am going to hand it off to Julie in a second, but I've known Julie for years. We met through yoga, and Julie loves to share this story. I think it's a cute story too, but she was coming to my class, and I thought, that girl has good energy. And we would always chat, and so I sent her a Facebook message, and I said, will you be my friend?
Yeah, she did. It was almost like the check the box, like, will you be my friend? I said yes, by the way. So. Yeah.
And then the rest is history. So, and now here she is. So, Julie, do you want to just introduce yourself and tell us what you do?
Sure.
Okay, so special.
Yeah. Well, my name is Julie Shannon Williams, and I used to be an elementary ed teacher for years. Some people don't know that about me, but I used to be a teacher. Still am, definitely an educator in many ways, but decided to take a leave of absence and became a certified yoga therapist. That term is new to a lot of people, but basically I'm coming up with individualized plans for individuals looking for ways to incorporate yoga into their life. And it could be someone who's never done any yoga at all in their life, and it could be someone with a physical ailment, could be a mental emotional issue. There's a lot of different reasons why people come to me for yoga therapy. And also I do some energy work on the side. So it's a combination, and sometimes I intertwine them, but the energy work is really more of an intuitive sense that I connect with the person where they're at. And I just love this individualized work that I get to do. When a pandemic is not happening, I also work at Trio Orthopedic Center doing yoga therapy, and as well as Health Partners Neuroscience Center doing yoga therapy. So I work with a lot of people with chronic pain. That's one of my main platforms, and autoimmune diseases as well. But at this time, it definitely feels like it's kind of switching for a lot of reasons. Obviously the online platform and my locations are not happening, but it's just been really interesting transitioning into doing the work that I'm doing on a different scale, and even work with people out of state, which has been fun too.
Yeah. And what's cool about Julie is, if you get a chance, we won't go into this in depth right now, but just her story of being an elementary school teacher and like going from that job to being self-employed, becoming a yoga therapist. And that journey maybe is for another conversation. And I think you spoke about it a little bit on one of my podcasts,
Yep.
the Speak Easy podcast a while ago. But so if you're somebody who's in transition or considering a career change, possibly from the pandemic, maybe you lost your job, or maybe you're like, wow, I have time to reflect on my life's work right now. Julie would be a good resource around that also, just because you have some good perspective.
Yeah. And that's a crazy time when you're in transition like that, dealing with something as big of a change or big of a leap. And sometimes, especially during COVID-19, we're not always given a choice of our changes that we're, looking at. Some of them are just kind of pushed into these places. And I initially had a lot of resistance with that, as I think this whole process of the pandemic is really bringing up for a lot of people. But there was such amazing gifts and beauty that came from when I just learned to just let go and leap and try, even though I didn't even know what steps were in front of me. If you would have asked me 10 years ago if I would have owned my own business and been a businesswoman, I would have laughed at you. It's just not what I thought where my path would lead me to. So maybe this is an important time for a lot of people to consider, what does this look like?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How do they want to pivot their life?
Yeah.
And some of it by choice and some of it not so much by choice, but then being able to utilize it as an opportunity instead of something that's been kind of like a horror for your own life. So awesome. Well, thanks for all of that and for introducing yourself. So as the other conversations, we're talking a little bit about just this time and the pandemic that's going on, and you specifically and the services that you offer. Where are you focusing your attention? Like with clients, what do you feel is being drawn out of you at this time based on the needs of the people that you're working with? And then also even for yourself too, like where have you been kind of zoomed in? What kind of, what's coming through you around this pandemic?
Yeah. I'm really appreciative that you're just bringing this forward, Amy, because I think it's good to have these types of conversations. Working with my clients, I find there's not really much difference between the experiences that they're having and then my own personal. The main thing that I've been having conversation after conversation is this idea of we're all on a roller coaster ride that we did not choose to get on. And sometimes there's these wonderful highs as we get to, or we have to slow things down. A lot of people have been talking about getting out in nature. I personally try to go for a walk a day, every single day. And that's been wonderful medicine for my brain and my body. I just feel like the highs as far as, I'm grateful that I live with my husband and have a companion that we're playing, we're having some time to read books, to kind of just explore a little bit, journal, take time to slow down. But then the lows are intense, right? And they're really individualized. Everyone I talk to has a different story. Some of it is everyone has loss at this time. That's what I'm noticing is a pattern. There's a lot of grief. There's a lot of loss. And it could be a loss of a schedule. It could be a loss of a loved one. If we really go, deep within this, there's some people that definitely have lost a loved one, or they themselves have lost a life. And I'm just really, thinking and feeling for a lot of those people in that situation. There's people that are friends of mine on the front line in the healthcare industry. Having worked at TRIA and the Neuroscience Center, a lot of my friends are called to the front line. And that's a whole different concern, long hours. Like I said, I was a teacher in the past. And so some of the work I've been doing is with my former colleagues, and they've never worked this hard in their life. And I know these people, they're hardworking people generally. So everyone's being stretched in new and different ways. And sometimes it's ways that feel good, and sometimes it's ways that feel really scary. The grief, the loss, and high anxiety. A lot of people are talking to me about, I work with people with helping them to breathe, which sounds like such a simplistic thing, but we are never trained or taught how to breathe. And once you learn that, yes, it helps you feel better and relaxed, but you're actually working with the autonomic nervous system. You're helping yourself go from, if you're familiar with this, the sympathetic nervous system is the fight, flight, or freeze. And then the parasympathetic nervous system is, some people call it the rest and digest phase. Those of you that are familiar with yoga class, meditation, mindfulness, after class, you just feel that kind of Zen space, that relaxed space. And that is the parasympathetic nervous system at work. And so a lot of times I'm helping people to understand a body awareness for themselves of how do you feel in your body in this moment. And I'll often ask in every single time I check in with my client, how are you feeling today? And they'll talk both about physical sensations, but they'll also talk about, I'm feeling really anxious, or maybe I feel isolated, I'm really lonely. Being an extrovert myself, I can identify with that. I miss my friends. I miss hanging out with Amy in person. So I feel that this roller coaster ride is really one of those where we can embrace those highs that feel really good to us, and the lows when we identify that our body is feeling stressed out or our mind is overwrought with the unknown. There's so much now. I think that's a big part of it, where people are feeling, they keep pushing the dates back of, staying quarantined and when do we go back to work? And there's not a lot of times in most people's lives anyway, where there are so many unknown factors, And so when it's the masses that are experiencing this, I guess in a way, there's a gift that we all are experiencing this together. And also, we're all experiencing this together. And it can feel really tumultuous at best. So kind of learning to just take some time to identify how you're feeling. And when you have those moments where you're on the high of the roller coaster, like absorb and savor that gratitude, just that peacefulness, the calm, that, I can just sit and read a book. I finished a book today and it was awesome. And then when you are having those lows where maybe it's a financial burden that's really affecting your family, what can you do for yourself in that moment to help yourself? I talk a lot with my clients about unhelpful thoughts. So for example, we can spend our day thinking over and over about the unknown, thinking about, oh my gosh, I really have anxiety about this. Or maybe it was something in the past, you're regurgitating, going back to that conversation that brought you some concern or angst or anger. Or maybe it's, the projection to the future. So I often have to stop myself, and it's just like an interruption of the anxiety and coming back to, no, actually what's happening right now today? What's in this moment? And it might mean that I don't have anything that I can control other than my breath. Mm-hmm. I can take a moment to sit. I can put my feet to the floor. I can relax my hands. A lot of times people talk to me about this. I'll cue people to relax their shoulders and like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know that was like that. Or their jaw, kind of relaxing the body is huge. And then just taking some time just to do a few slow, deep breaths can really help you drop into the present moment and take away some of the strain from the past or the present or the future. So those things have been so much of my conversations with my clients, and the work that I'm doing is I feel, and Amy, I know you don't know this, we were given a gift by this type of career that we have, because, people often say to me in classes or sessions, how did you know to say that? That's exactly what I was thinking or feeling in my body or in my mind. And I'm like, because I do it too. I'm grateful that I myself take the time to identify when I have the tightness in the chest and I can, okay, I need to sit down, or I need to move my body. I need to go for a walk. So it's just really helpful to have this awareness. And you can't always alleviate it, right? We can't always fix it, especially during a pandemic. But we can guide ourselves to a space that feels a little more doable. Yeah.
I love that. And I love that you're an educator.
Yeah, that comes through, I guess, huh? Yeah, I won't ever leave.
Well, just the being able to speak so simplistically to some things that make the nuggets really digestible, the way that you share. And I think that comes from just, being an educator. You've got a knack for that. And I'm wondering if you could just share a little bit more about the breath, because you talked about how nobody teaches us to breathe, yet we breathe naturally. We don't have to learn how to breathe necessarily because it's happening.
Yeah.
But why would we? And you've mentioned like the breath is one of the ways that we can remind ourselves of this moment.
Yeah.
Especially when we're
on the ride.
So can you just speak to that a little bit? Like, why would we have to learn how to breathe, or just give a little bit more information around that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, in connecting it back to the autonomic nervous system, there's research that shows that the more we can begin to lengthen, especially our exhale, that makes a huge difference within our system. And, oftentimes when I have people identify just how are you breathing in this moment, 9 times out of 10, when we start a session, people say, I have my breath, it's like right here in the front of my chest. Maybe it's on the rib cage, but it's short and it's shallow. Sometimes it feels staggered, like they try to take in a full breath and it gets kind of like there's like a little roughness to it. And so when we start to just very gently begin to release the tension of the body, first and foremost, because we can't breathe when we are knotted up and there's a lot of tension. There's just not a lot of space in the torso physiologically. So if you're taking some time either to sit, and we'll do a little bit of this later, but imagine some length and space through the body, through the torso. And then paired with the relaxing of the muscles helps you to kind of drop into that space. And then there's that sensation of body awareness of where the breath is moving as you're breathing, and as simple as even imagine the breath going in through the nose, down, expanding, filling the lungs, which expands the rib cage, and then taking that time to just slowly let the breath release out. So that alone can be a huge difference. And like I said, it affects the nervous system to the point where you get a say in that. There's a lot of things in this time frame that don't feel that we have much control over. And we're just kind of at the whim of, okay, I just got to trust the process here and let go of the handlebars, maybe the white knuckle grip on the steering wheel, so to speak. But the more we can relax into the breath with the body, the more you can shift the direction. And the thoughts of the mind are huge. As long as we can kind of correlate. And if the thoughts are too much, you can just literally think about where the breath is moving in your body. And I've done that a lot. And it drops you into the present moment so well that the negative thoughts or the fearful thoughts, they dissipate. They might not completely leave, because we have what's called the monkey mind, right? Chitta vritti in yoga. So it's, if we can find a way to really go internal and start to slowly take your time with the breath, you can affect physiologically, you can affect the body. That's a wonderful gift. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. So what I'm hearing or what I'm kind of gathering from it is that our starting point, so it's that we obviously know how to breathe. It's happening naturally.
Yep.
However, we haven't, we breathe in all different ways, and depending on our environments and the situations that come up in our lives, or the thoughts that we're thinking, or the emotions that we're feeling, our breath will vary.
Yes.
and how our body's holding tension. Our breath will vary, but there is kind of an organic, maybe healthy approach to the breath that we can cultivate or that we can learn.
Yes.
Just being able to like learning the pathway of the breath or learning where maybe the potential is for the breath to move.
Yep.
And that might be something that some people, we have not been taught, like, okay, here's the full potential of the breath, accessing that, opening the body so that that can happen will support you in positive ways. But you might come to the table with a little bit of a staggered breath, shortness in the breath, constricted breath.
Yep.
So,
and a lot of times our bodies, they're there to protect us, first and foremost. That's like one of the main things I see with almost all my clients, especially those struggling with chronic pain. Their bodies are on purposely protecting them. Their nervous systems are overtaxed, like all of ours are at this time. Mm-hmm. And so the more we can start to identify that and start to kind of unpeel these layers of protection and let the body know, like, no, this actually is okay for you to release and ease your muscles. And pranayama is the Sanskrit word for breath work within yoga. And so there's so many different breath practices. But I would encourage people to think about too, because anxiety is a prevalent component right now, not all pranayama practices necessarily feel good. And so to give yourself full permission to try things out, but then notice if it's increasing your levels of anxiety, then just let it go. Because sometimes breath retention, for example, that's just like where you inhale up to the top of the breath and you hold it for just a moment. And it's not this gripping hold. You keep the body relaxed, but you pause and then you release it out. Sometimes breath retention, I don't always do that with my clients, especially when they have a lot of anxiety, because the breath retention alone can stimulate the nervous system and activate the sympathetic nervous system, which is the counter of what we want in this moment. Mm-hmm. So kind of identifying, being always mindful of noticing and observing how you're feeling as you're practicing breathing. You're the best teacher for yourself. Mm-hmm. All of us yogis, we're the guides to help you sink in to understand how you feel, truly.
Yeah. And it sounds like on the most basic level, just even attuning to your breath, like can be medicine. Just being able to take a pause, just to feel your breath, even if your breath is short, like that little pause can start to just create a little space.
Completely.
Depending on what's going through your head and how you're feeling in your body, your emotions. So with all of that information, is there anything else that you wanted to say about that? Or
I think one thing too that I've noticed with my clients specifically is that community is essential. Mm-hmm. And right now we're feeling, many of us are feeling that our community has been taken away from us. And that could be our friendships, that could be family, that could be if you are, religious, maybe going to church or whatever that looks like, your belief system. And so I think finding ways to identify too, if you feel isolated, to make sure that you're reaching out to people that you know and trust and love. That doesn't always feel comfortable when you're not feeling your best, but sometimes that is really important. I know my clients that I'm seeing, some of the groups that I have, they've asked me to add on a class during the week because they just feel so much better with the community, even though we're staring at computer screens, right? We as humans need that interaction. We need physiologically, we need connection. Mm-hmm. And so to not deny that if you're feeling that way, that it is really important. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Definitely. I know that if I was completely 100% alone, I would be reaching my thresholds of sanity at this moment.
As an introvert, you might, yeah, exactly.
I mean, I can be pretty introverted myself, but I think, there's definitely, and collectively also when you mix in just that there are a lot of people isolated. It's not just yourself in the moment. Collectively there's an energy kind of vortex too that's holding all of this.
And I think that's one thing too, when you were saying the collective energy, it made me think of boundaries is another thing that is really important at this time, I feel like, and identifying for yourself healthy boundaries.
Mhm.
Because when people are over anxious, when they do reach out to you, if you yourself have high anxiety, it's really hard to hold space for people that are even more anxious than you are. And so being able to identify yourself, is this a good time for me to pick up the phone? Maybe I could text a message, just a lovely message to them instead, because you really need to think kind of like that, you can't give from your cup until your cup is full idea. And so if you are feeling really depleted, it's okay to identify that and to be able to, reach out in the ways that you want to and you can, but also to know your limits too. That if other people's anxiety, I know a lot of people are reading the news right now and it's escalating their nervous system. And so to be able to say, you know what, this might not be the best choice for me in this moment, and to be able to set that boundary to turn off the TV or the radio, or, just giving yourself full permission to listen to what your needs are is really important.
Yes, I totally 100% agree with that one. Coming from a girl who's still learning how to set boundaries.
Oh, yeah, I'm right there with you, Amy.
So how do you do that, Julie? Can you answer that?
That's a whole other show. No.
Yes. Whole other show on that one. I've come a long way, and I know you have. Do you want to share with us what practice you think would help all of us to at least experiment with, to bring with us through our days right now?
Sure. You asked me this a little bit to ponder on this and think, what would I want to bring to the table? And obviously, like, all these ideas pop up, and one thing I was thinking was ironic is something that I often teach and then utilize with my clients with chronic pain seems very much in sync with the pandemic right now. One of my mentors, Neal Pearson, he's out of British Columbia, and through Pain Care U, I've learned a lot from him and his programming. And he has 3 elements that people with chronic pain can be thinking about. And the more I thought on this, I'm like, this applies now. This applies to different types of pain, and grief and loss being one of them. So the 3 areas that he has us focus on is one that I feel like a lot of people who know, like, terminology like self-care, yoga, meditation, mindfulness, all these words are being put out, often with a lot of research actually to support it. And so maybe many people know different ways to demonstrate calming themselves. It could be taking a bath, it could be aromatherapy. I love lavender. That's my favorite. That's my jam. So I go to that if I need to, because it literally, the scent goes right to the amygdala of the limbic system of the brain, the emotion center, and it helps you to physiologically, it helps you to relax. There's different ways you can set on soft music. You can have candle lights. Those are things that a lot of people know. The second step to this is, it's respite. If you're in Canada, though, I learned it's called respite. That was new to me. And that is more of like the getaway. That's the vacation. A lot of people, they crave vacations to step out of their day-to-day living. Well, if you are someone with chronic pain, that's essential, is to be able to take your mind off of your pain and visit somewhere else. And it could be literally a place you go to, or oftentimes it's a visualization. It's a virtual space, right? Sometimes it's turning on Netflix for watching that show that makes you laugh. There could be a lot of different ways of escape for this respite. And we'll come visit this one as the tool. But the third is challenge. And, a lot of times my chronic pain clients will look at me like, seriously, you want to challenge me? Like, I'm in pain every day. And so challenge can look very differently. And right now for us, a big part of challenge is slowing down. We don't have our day-to-day schedules. They don't look the same as they used to for most of us. And so the challenge might be to take your time to slow and eat a meal. It might be taking the time to, we're washing our hands like crazy these days with the pandemic. So mindfully wash your hands. How does it feel to let the water just flow over your hands while you're singing your song or whatever, you know, the 20 seconds we're supposed to do this. So a lot of different ways to challenge yourself. If you're walking fast and your mind is racing, you're taking a walk, maybe you start to slow down your steps and notice the birds. There's a lot of them out there right now because we're all in our homes. But being out in nature and just slowing down, being more mindful. So that could be the challenge. The challenge, if you are a type A person, could be you have to do things. You know, there's a joke going around, like if you're not doing something of value, being creative, making a new project, then there's a lot of pressure to need to do those things right now too. Mm-hmm. And I think it's important to make sure to give yourself permission. Your challenge might be to wake up in the morning and get out of bed and find a space of safety for yourself, in your mind, in your breath, in your body. So coming back to the second one, a little vacation. I just thought, you know, maybe we could do a little guided imagery. And so if we're ready, I'll kind of take you through an example. So those of you at home, we can't see you, but if you want to, you can stay seated in your position that you're in. You can also choose to lie down if you'd prefer. So just take a moment to allow the body for a little space to settle in. Just begin to take notice of the pelvis releasing to the support beneath you. If it feels comfortable, you can allow your eyes to gently close, or just finding a soft gaze. Just take your time to fan the fingers and then soften the fingertips. Purposefully allow the shoulders slowly to relax from the ears. You can begin to unhinge the jaw. Just slowly let the tongue become heavy inside the mouth. And softening at the throat. Relaxing the cheekbones and the temples. Just notice if the feet are touching onto the floor or where they are. Just allow them to grow heavy. No need to push or force with any of these movements. They'll be very soft and subtle. And as the body has space to release and let go, just notice how it feels to be supported as you are. Just take a moment now to begin to draw your awareness to your breath. Just your natural breathing, no effort, no force. And slowly begin to identify the areas of the body that gently move as you breathe. Very subtle movement, very soft. Noticing how it feels to allow the breath to roll into the nose, down to the chest, and noticing the lungs filling and expanding with the rib cage. And how every exhale, the body slowly melts back towards center, towards the heart, and gently exhales out the nose or the mouth. And just take your time here. Just noticing those areas that sometimes need to be coaxed into releasing. You need to relax. And see if you can begin to even expand the breath, lengthening a little more here as you open up through the chest. And then just as the breath was gliding down an escalator, feel free to take your time with your exhale. Noticing the areas of the body that have released. Observing the breath. And if the thoughts of the mind come, just allow them to do so. No need to push them out. Just allow the breath to come and go. And just allow the thoughts to do the same, as though they were just gentle clouds in the sky. And then imagine in your mind's eye, this could be a place that you've been before. This could be a brand new place to you. But let it be someplace inviting. Let it be someplace where you can settle into and you can feel your body relax. Continue to notice the breath as you settle into this space. And start to take notice of your 5 senses. Observe in your mind's eye the things that you can see in this location. This could be a place that you are in by yourself. This could be a place that's filled with loved ones. Just taking in all the sights that you see. Begin to notice if there's any sounds that you hear. What things might you hear in this space? Continuing to let the muscles relax. Take notice of what's touching you. And can you relax into that touch? Noticing again at the tip of the nose, the breath. Maybe there's aromas nearby. Maybe there's a scent that you breathe in that reminds you of that space. Notice how it feels to savor that breath. And there might be something to taste in this space as well. So imagine and inviting the texture on the tongue and savoring how that feels to eat something in that space. Something that brings you delight. Noticing how it feels to observe all 5 of these senses. And staying mindful to continue to let the body relax. And as you continue on with these deep breaths, just take your time with 4 more deep and slow inhales and exhales. Savoring the sights, the sounds, the smells, the taste and the touch. Just going at your pace, absolutely no rush. And everyone's pace of breath is unique. So once you finish all 4 breaths, breathing in this beautiful space, just allow yourself to go back to a natural breath with no counting, no effort. And slowly begin to bring your awareness back to the space in your room, in your body. And if it feels good, no one's watching, you can take your time to begin to invite in gentle movements, rotating the wrists, rotating the ankles, relaxing the shoulders back and down. And if the eyes are closed, you can very gently begin to flutter the eyes open. And just take a moment to take a deep breath in through the nose and then sigh out the mouth. And just check in to see how you feel. Just noticing any sensations that may come up, any emotion that might have been stirred during that little respite. Great. And if there's any questions on what we did or anything that comes to mind, feel free to share too. We'd love to hear comments or questions. How was that for you, Amy?
Was lovely. Lovely.
Do you want to share where you went to?
Where did I go to? I went to a beach in Bali.
Ooh, nice.
Which kind of surprised me actually, because when I was at that beach, I don't remember having like an amazing experience. I mean, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't like something that I would think that would come up, but that was the image that came up in my mind. And but I think because it was very wild, it's a lot for my senses to take in.
Yeah.
And it was, and I just love going through all of those senses and spending time with each one. So the sound, for the strongest ones for me were the sound of the waves crashing, because it was a very wild beach. Like the waves were really big and loud. And then just the sand was soft and warm, and it was, so I got to really
great. I want to go there.
I think I need to be there for a lot longer. This needs to be like an hour long.
Yeah. A deep rest.
Nice thing about that one is no sunscreen required. So
right, exactly.
Which is awesome. Yeah. I'm just going to see what other people have shared here. An anonymous attendee has a couple questions. So I don't know if you do want me to read these questions, Julie, for you?
Go for it.
Okay. You've talked a lot about the physiology of health, well-being, and the nervous system. Can you talk about the discrepancy one notices when they know they should engage in some of these self-care practices but struggle to do so? Second question, you mentioned earlier on about how you do energy work on the side. I'm curious, can you talk more about that?
Sure. Okay, the first question, yes, the nervous system. And can you talk about the discrepancy one notices when you know they should engage in some of these self-care practices but struggle to do so? Guilty, by the way, as charged. That is one of the tough ones. I feel like there's so many times in so many aspects of life where we know what might be best for us, and then we choose another option instead. For example, my husband and I, we've talked a little bit about, we're watching more movies lately. We're watching more computer screen time, which is crazy because that's not necessarily something that I normally do too often. I think there's two aspects to this. I think one is if this gets to a point where you're beating yourself up about not doing the self-care practices, then to notice that and to consider having some deep self-compassion, especially at this time where we're dealing with something so unusual as a pandemic. It's really important and a value to notice when you're adding on something to your plate to be hard on yourself about, and to be able to just say, you know what, it's okay that I chose this choice tonight, but maybe tomorrow I'm going to choose a different option. Tomorrow I'm going to get out and go for a walk. I do feel, I myself, it's like I've been doing yoga for over 20 years. I have to remind myself, like I just recently, a few days in a row now, I've done a yoga practice and I'm like, why don't I do this all the time? It's so good. It's so important. We're human, right? And sometimes that's just how it is. It's just harder to stick with it. So I'd say first and foremost, to answer your question, don't beat yourself up about it. Let it be something that is a little more organic, a little more natural. And with that being said, at the same time, if you notice there's a pattern for yourself that you put something in front of your self-care, then observe it and identify it and then make changes. Put yourself first. I think we have a tendency in our society to put others first, which is all well and good. But like I said before with the cup analogy, if your cup is not full, it's really hard to give to people in a healthy, proper way. And so just sticking with it as best you can. And if something's not working, or it feels like you're, for example, getting to the mat and it feels like another thing you have to cross off your to-do list, maybe take a moment before you start your practice and answer the reason why you're there. Why it's a value to do the practice. It's something you get to do versus something I have to do. So I hope that answered that first question. The second one said, you mentioned early on about how you do energy work on the side. I'm curious, can you talk more about that? So yeah, Amy's been doing energy work herself for years. And so she and I have had these dialogues, these conversations around it. And it's something that it was new to me that I even knew what I was doing with this. It was really hard. Amy she's been a big cheerleader for me to be like, Julie, you do this, just do this. But I myself, it took me a while to understand my energy in my body and be able to kind of work with that. When I work with a client one-on-one, there's oftentimes it starts off very similar to yoga. I'll help them to kind of get into their body, relax, work with the breath. It might be some physical hands-on, I might come to their shoulders and help them kind of soften their shoulders, or just gentle pressure at the head, just to kind of let them know I'm there, and a little sense of grounding, and I'm connecting in with their energy. I struggle with the word healer because I don't feel like I'm doing the healing. I feel like I'm guided to help the person in front of me do their healing. It's their process, not mine. And so to me, that's a huge part of it, is I just help them to bring questions forward, to notice, to observe, to find some self-compassion in those hard times, just to start to identify for themselves how their energy is. And energy is, it's a little different than emotion, physical sensation. And that would be something that, in a session, when there's more time, I'd go into more depth about it. But I hope that answers the question. And again, if someone's interested in doing energy work with me, they're definitely able to check on my website and reach out to me too. And we could for sure set up an appointment with yoga therapy or with the energy work as well.
And all of Julie's, if you're new to Julie, all of Julie's information will be available. If you're on this call, or if you signed up for this call, you get an email from me, hopefully tomorrow or Tuesday, and it'll include information on how to connect with Julie if you don't have her information yet. But she's got good juju. So best way to understand her energy work is to get
juju.
And there's no other questions, but I have a couple things to add to that too. I wanted to speak to the self-care thing because I struggle with that myself. I think, like Julie said, we're all human, and doing what we think is good for us versus like the naughty thing we want to do. Yeah. Watch TV or read like an inspirational book, or
right.
But and you had mentioned the piece about judgment, like taking judgment even about like, is this good to do, or is this good to do? Is this bad? Is this not bad? Like kind of taking judgment off the table, I think, is a really key piece. And then I know for myself, something that has helped, especially when I'm choosing what I think is the bad thing over what I could be doing as a good thing, is slowing it really down. So let's say I'm going to reach for that sugary food or that glass of wine, or things like that. Slowing down just slowing it down.
Yes.
So I'm like, oh, I want that. I want it really badly. why do I want it? Oh, I think it's going to make me feel better. But like slowing it down for me actually has made me like kind of bring more consciousness to the pattern, whether it's the pattern of choosing something that I'm thinking that isn't good for me, or if I'm choosing just to not do something that I think is good for me. It's just slowing it down so that I can bring to consciousness all of it.
Yeah.
Has helped. And then another thing too is the things that you should be doing, the self-care that you should be doing. Is there any joy in it? Right. Is it fun? Do you want to do it because it feels good? Because sometimes I think we think I should go for a walk or I should eat that food, but you're not connected to the pleasure of that, or you're not connected to the joy of that. And so of course, why would you want to do it?
Right.
And of course we have to clean the toilet sometimes, and like that's just the reality of life.
Those things.
But I think with self-care, especially if it's a struggle for you, and again, I'm speaking from my own experience, if for me to start kind of getting into that routine, I have to find a little bit of joy. Like I started doing like 10-minute workouts.
Yes.
Yep. Because I knew I needed to move, but I could commit to 10 minutes and it wouldn't kill me. And now I'm like, I want to do a half hour. I'm like, that's not for me. I'm at that place where I'm doing that. And so just food for thought. That was coming up inside of me when Julie was speaking to that.
No, I agree, especially the impulsive, quick decision. I often, treats for me, chocolate, and I just love chocolate. And sometimes when I just sit with it for a moment, or even just hold it in my hands, like, do I really want this right now? Or is this something else that I'm either avoiding or, neglecting, and sometimes I will say, yeah, I really want this and I'll enjoy it. I'll savor it like you talked about. But sometimes it does make me think, you know what, I don't think that's it. I don't think that's what I need in this moment. So it is really important. It's just the pause, there's purpose in the pause. And I think it's really good for us, especially at this time, to just notice our thoughts, notice our breath, notice how our body feels. Yeah.
And I think like going back to the roller coaster analogy too, like every high, you're going to come down off of every high, and you're going to come up out of every low. And it's kind of that yin yang, but it's just, that's part of nature too. And so sometimes I think like, well, I really want those M&Ms, so I'm going to eat those M&Ms. And there have been times where I'm like, and I'm not a huge sugar person, but I'm using this. No, just definitely not. For me, it's more like, I really want that potato chip. I'm a salty person.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So then instead of just being like, well, I'll give myself 5, that's the serving, I will just eat the whole bag and maybe another bag. And then I'll be so sick of potato chips that I don't want any more potato chips. Right?
Yes.
All right. So there's no other questions right now, but I'm also feeling drawn. I want to ask you again, can you repeat those 3 things? That the respite was one of them, but what was the first?
Sure. Yep. Yeah. The first one is probably the most known, is the calm. So finding ways to calm your body, calm your breath, calm your nervous system, using any tools that, again, like you said, bring you joy. What do you want to do? Not what you read in the magazine that you should do, but what draws you in. The second is what we did, the example of respite. And so it's finding that quick escape. And one thing I really want to take note of too is it's not the idea to stay in that escapism. That's really important. This is a moment in time where we did the visual guided imagery to take a break from the stressful situation that we're in, with someone with chronic pain, to take a break from noticing and experiencing the constant pain. It's healthy to take a little break from it, but then come back. And I said, bring you back into the body, back to notice the room. So that's really important. And then the third was the challenge component. So challenging yourself might look very different to person. So if the challenge is to do your discipline practice, do the parts that in the long run will make you feel better. Try it consistently for a while. That might be a challenge. The other side of the coin might be, the challenge might be to slow down, because you're trying to do too much, and your body's giving you signs, your breath is giving you signs that that's a not sustainable pace. So just self-compassion. If there's one thing I could say, be mindful to be compassionate with yourself at this time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thanks for going through those again. I just wanted to get those 3 down. So calm, respite, and challenge.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Awesome. All right. Does anybody have any questions? Mary Petchins just said thank you. Petchin. She said thank you so much. Thanks for being here, Mary. But if you have any other questions or comments that you want to add to any of this, we'd love to entertain those. And Julie, I don't know if there's any closing words of wisdom that you want to leave everybody with. I loved the guided visualization. I think that that's just such a good little, just like something we can like drop into before bed, waking up in the morning, taking a break during the day.
Yeah, they don't have to be big things. They like I said, washing your hands mindfully, taking a walk out in nature, just taking notice of the present moment. And then there are other services provided where like the services I provide, Amy is on Insight Timer. It's an excellent option too. So there's different things that if it's hard for you to do on your own, by all means, I went online and attended a yoga class today, and it just really was helpful. So like I said, community is essential. Reach out for those services and things that you need.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, I like to try to wrap these up right around an hour so that we can keep it succinct and also post it on Instagram TV because lots of people will like to view it there as well. So if you don't have any other questions, and if you do, put them in the box and we will check those out. But if you don't have any other questions, and Julie, if you don't have anything else that you want to add, I think we can kind of start to wrap up this Tools for Humanity session.
Yeah. I just want to say thank you, Amy, for providing this platform because I think it's just really important for people to have access to these things and have these conversations because there is that true isolation going on, and it's really good to stay connected. So thank you for this.
Yeah, it's good to stay connected, and it's good to get inspired, you know, to hear and to hear. I think each of the speakers, and you did tonight too, just to hear each person's individual experience of what they're going through and kind of how they're managing or dealing with or what they're healing as they move through this time, because it normalizes those moments that we might have individually when we're alone, being like, oh my God, like, what's going on? Why am I feeling this way? And of course we have something big going on in the world, but just hearing everybody's unique experience too is just really powerful. So thank you for coming and sharing and being part of this and just bringing your energy tonight and your gifts and skills. And just everybody definitely needs to check out Julie. And like I said, the links, I'll be sending those links out if you don't have them already, but her energy work sessions and yoga therapy sessions can be done virtually right now, even the yoga therapy, because there's beautiful technology like Zoom, and energy can, you know, time and space really don't affect energy work. I just know this from my own personal experience. And Julie really does have a gift in both of these domains, and so she's worth investing in and checking out if you need support or feel called at this time. So
thanks, Amy. And thanks everyone for joining.
Yeah, thank you all for being a part of this. Lots of thank yous coming in. And Julie's husband actually is the next speaker, and he's going to be speaking this Thursday as part of the Tools for Humanity series. So
check him out.
Check him out too. Good duo here. So tune in for that. And yeah, and then otherwise I'll be sending an email tomorrow. So
thank you, Amy.
Thank you everyone for joining. Thank you again, Julie.
Bye everyone. Have a good night.
Sunday evening. Bye.